Today we're talking about aviation pandemic response to BHS checkpoints, technology solutions and planning. And we have a good panel here that we want to talk about a lot of the elements that are going to be affecting them, what's going on at airports and what's being done in terms of addressing those. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that Q&A will be at the end of this, but we encourage everyone to put in your questions on the chat online, and we'll answer those at the end. We have an hour set up for this, and there's a lot of information to get through, so I wanted to make sure I got that point in. Again, I'd like to thank everyone to come in and join us today to listen and discuss this aviation response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As everyone is already painfully aware, the effects on airports, aviation in general, airlines is very widespread and it's numerous, and having this discussion can go down so many different paths, so that what we want to do today to make this hour-long discussion more meaningful is to focus on what it's doing from a baggage and a checkpoint perspective within the airport environment. And to that end, there's key tenets that we want to get into about examining the main goals and the core stakeholder values that are important for implementing these changes that we'll be talking about, what it does to them operationally at the airports and the airlines, and what solutions there is to protect passengers and the staff and instill that confidence of getting everyone flying again. So regaining trust in these environments is the most imperative aspect that we're trying to get to, so that people get to the airports, go on airplanes, feel safe, get the industry back to where it is as a more safe, normal, and profitable environment. So to that end, we've got a great panel for you today, knowledgeable experts representing everything from airports, industry folks with technical solutions, airlines, design staff, and folks who also talk a little bit about policy and governance when they work with TSA and other entities that will affect what's put in place on these systems, both the inline and baggage handling systems, as well as small baggage systems and checkpoints. So I want to go through a little bit about who the panel is, so you know who we're talking. We got Greg Blunt from Robson Baruzzini Cage. He represents the design and implementation aspects of the discussion. He's the senior VP for Robson Baruzzini Cage, working with over 30 years of experience in baggage, material handling, and checked baggage inspection systems. He's a member of the International Association of Baggage System Companies, and he's a subject matter expert on implementing PGDS and security measures into the systems that we're talking about with baggage. Brian Cobb joins us from Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International Airport. He's their Chief Innovation Officer for the airport. He's been there with 30 years in aviation and 20 with airlines, and the last 10 with CVG. His areas of oversight include the customer experience, IT, and innovation. He is also a graduate of Emory-Riddle, and he holds commercial and pilot and flight instructor licenses and certification and ratings. Next up is Mike Carpenter for Siemens Logistics in North America. He's the Senior Director of their Product Lifecycle Management, and he is responsible for that lifecycle management as well as innovation and intellectual property management, excuse me. He's got 25 years of experience as an automation professional, and he's got over 20 granted US and foreign patents. Matt Williams joins us from Robson Handling Technology. He is the president. He is leading up the expansion of the 115-year-old UK-based company into the US, and he has 30 years of multinational senior experience in the aviation manufacturing and software. He is also an IABSC member. Sally Nordeen joins us by phone from Smiths Detection. She is the Senior Director of Aviation Solutions for the Americas, and she specializes in detection and identification solutions for multiple materials and threats. She's responsible for their strategic and tactical components of customer engagement for US and Canada. She's been with Smith since 2017 and with Morpho Detection through the acquisition back since 2011. And last but not least is Mark Baker from Southwest Airlines. He is the East Regional Manager for Airport Screening Operations for Southwest Corporate Facilities. He's got over 11 years of experience in aviation, specializing in the design, project management, program development, maintenance processes related to baggage and security checkpoints. He is also on the board for IABSC. He's a PGDS industry work group member, and he is a liaison to the TSA as well as within Southwest Airlines, part of their ASL focus group. So with that, we'll start our conversation. We're going to hit on multiple topics today, and mainly the overall arching things that we're going to talk about are what is the value that we have for the stakeholders and the clients? What are the operational aspects that we have to discuss? What's been done? What's being done? What's going to be done in the future for attacking the fears and as well as mitigating the exposures to COVID-19 or other things that may come along? How do we future-proof it? So what does that do in terms of facility requirements, and what are the systems and technologies that are solution-bound for attacking these issues? And at the end, like I said, we're going to have a little bit of Q&A. So with that, I'll get right into it. And I am your producer today, so there will be a little bit of lag time, but I will get everyone's image up there, and we'll take it from there. So we'll start off with client value. The value to everyone, as anyone can guess, is probably what is it to get passengers' confidence regained and get them back into airports and airlines. So with that, I wanted to ask a quick question of Brian. What are your main concerns from the airport perspective? What is it that COVID-19 has got keeping you up at night right now?
Well, that's not a loaded question. Good to see you, Pete. And thanks for hosting and certainly playing DJ today. Very much appreciated. So from the value proposition piece, really we're looking at it from two sides of the house. We have a significant presence of cargo and certainly the passenger operation. Those two traded off of each other. Cargo actually suffered first and has rebounded, and it's almost Christmas every day on the other side of the airfield. Passengers, not so much, and we anticipate this, carryover for some time. What keeps us up at night is how do we make sure, to your point, that we're future-proofing? And it really is a slow, methodical approach that says, let's establish that value, to your point, what you shared previously. That value proposition for the consumer has to be involving stabilization, restoration, advancement, and definitely the sharing. On the stabilizing front, we have to be a going concern like any other business going forward, which means we're going to have to pivot and make sure that those revenues are coming in. On the restoration side, we have to demonstrate first and foremost that we do concern and are caring about the health implications going forward. And it's not just a one and done with COVID. It's very much what are we doing going forward for any future potential pandemic and frankly, any outbreak on a local circumstance, epidemic related. And then on the advancement front, this is a perfect opportunity, almost like a la military style shakedown of let's take it easy, focus on what's happening now that we have a slowdown in industry and leverage the talent and technology to really make advancements. And as we're doing that, we need to be doing this, which is sharing. Let's share across the industry to really try to propel us back to success with the health. Making sure that the consumer knows that they are first and foremost in front of them.
Well, thank you, Brian. I have a little background noise, but I believe everyone's been hearing it. Mark, I want to pose the same question to you from an airline perspective. I wanted to see what has Southwest done in terms of what are their concerns and what steps they're taking. What are you experiencing now, and where are you going with it?
Thanks, Pete. It's really no surprise the traffic's fallen off, so internally with us, we had to have really quick, aggressive conversations about what we can implement to really restore the customer's confidence. And that is, number one, that it's safe to fly, and how we can also retain that level of comfort with them, so demand can come back as quick as it possibly can. So, our initial discussions really circled around, quick action. What can we do? What do we need to do? What technologies have been proven and can be implemented fast? And then alongside that, we developed a plan called the Promise. So this is something that we have committed to our customers, and initiated some things to help restore that confidence to the consumer that it is safe to fly, and we're doing everything that is reasonably possible at this point to make sure that it is safe. Some of the things are like we're requiring the mask now, and we've changed our boarding processes. We've also, cleaning our planes at teams. I don't know if anybody's had the opportunity to fly, but you'll see 2 or 3 team people load the plane and help clean that plane and disinfect it after each turn. So those are some of the things that we've done in the media. There are some things that we're still talking about. There's still many opinions about those technologies, but those conversations are still going on. And then behind the scenes, we've also had our employee conference, as well as things that we're doing for our employees, break rooms, offices, stuff like that. And then also focus cleans if we've been notified of any potential positive test. So moving forward, it's just hoping to get this demand back as fast as we can, and just doing our part to just show the customers that we're doing everything that we can. It's no secret that we're a very customer focused oriented company anyways, so it's just really about what we can do, and then what else is out there that we can leverage, and how it is implemented. So I think for now is like, what technology is out there, what's the value, has it been proven, if it needs to be integrated, what does that look like, what steps have to be gone through. So
very good. We have to talk about what it's going to take to facilitate getting passengers back, and we're going to go into a little bit about that. But I wanted to ask Greg from a design standpoint and from just a client interface standpoint, what are you hearing from other airports and airlines? I know that you're dealing with several, so it's just a matter of understanding what they're doing, and is there any steps that they're taking that you've heard that is different from what we've been talking about so far?
No, Pete, thank you. No, not really. I mean, obviously the obvious and I think the ancillary downfall of what's happened is, depressed revenue streams. That kind of puts us on a little pressure on those of us in the industry to kind of pursue and come up with, support our airline, airport, TSA partners with solutions, practical solutions, economical solutions that can be implemented very efficiently and expeditiously. To try to get, as Mark was pointing out, trying to get that public back to traveling again. So we've been exploring some of those things that some of my supplier colleagues here shortly probably will talk about, a couple more specific with specific products, but looking at solutions we can implement. I think the checkpoint areas, it's a little easier. I mean, a lot of people talk about the cleanliness, and the checkpoint's a little kind of an isolated area. It gets a lot of focus. We were kind of more looking at check bags. I think even pre-COVID, the whole process up front was sort of moving towards somewhat of a touchless type of an operation anyway, with regard to the remote kiosk, self-tagging, self-check-in. It sort of lends itself to a little bit of touchless there. So a lot of airports already have implemented a lot of those types of solutions that was even pre-COVID. But we were looking at downstream. What do we do to protect, say, TSA folks that are operating in SEBRA? Facilities maintenance folks that are manning the bag room, clearing bag jams, and similarly on an inbound arrival side, can we assure the traveling public when they're back to a claim unit to claim a bag, that this bag is safe for them to grab again? And so those kind of solutions we've been kind of working with suppliers and airline, airport, TSA partners, just discuss what options are. I think the key there's going to be is economical solutions, and you got to be able to implement pretty quick, right? Because if it's this solution that's going to take 2 years, we don't have 2 years right now. I think most people would agree in the industry. We need something now. So that's all the stuff we're looking at to kind of touch on what you were asking about.
Yeah, and one of the major aspects of this is having a capital investment to get this increase of passenger volume and revenue back. Are you hearing anything about a reticence to invest, or is everyone seeing it as a requirement? They have to get this going, otherwise the airline industry and the airport industry is just going to be suffering.
Yeah, I think some of them, obviously Mark can certainly speak to it from an airline standpoint, and Brian from an airport standpoint. But I mean, I think when in discussions with some of the airline folks, is there enough need, and can you get a return on the investment to put something in. The kind of solutions we were looking at from a check bag standpoint, for example, I could, to use the word clean the bag, so to speak, I could hit it with UV or something. Say I get that bag, it's on the external surface of the bag, but say that bag gets into SEBRA and TSA folks have to open the bag. Well, the contents inside the bag aren't necessarily clean, but outside may be, those kind of things. And then bags would go in tubs. I don't have a full 360 shot of a device, for example, of any kind of UV coverage of that bag. A lot of challenges. We're working, I'm from the engineering side, just looking at all those different scenarios and see, do we have a solution for those to provide a product that can really provide a real return in really in empirical results, that create a safe environment. There's a lot of challenges on check bags. I think the rest of the operation, Mark probably and Brian as well, and others agree. It's a little. I think it's probably a little easier because of the touch points. You have a little bit more control, like a checkpoint, versus check bag systems. It goes through a lot of hands from tick count curbside. TSA is going to touch it. Bag third party or airline bag handler is going to touch it. A lot of people, and so how do you kind of you bring that solution across the whole gamut from receipt of the bag to belt loaders, for example, at the ramp. So those are kind of things, challenges we've been just talking through, trying to work through. And is there a product or products that can solve each one of those little applications?
Yeah, and I think we'll show some examples later, but I think the real value to regain that, you have to have a capital investment. I think people are going to have to sort that out, and reticence or not, ROI or not, I think they have to do something to get it back in. And we'll talk a little bit as we go through what our operations and facility requirement discussion is a little bit later on. Also, I want to talk to you, Matt. What are you hearing? Well, really, what steps are the industry taking to help airports and airlines prepare at this point?
Yeah, thanks, Pete and Greg. I would agree 100% on what you're seeing out there in the field. You'll hear from Siemens and Smiths, and they have their own solutions as well. We were approached 2 or 3 months ago when COVID started get going here. I guess it was much around late March. By one of our customers in the UK, actually London Stansted, and they needed a solution for UVC. And you touched on a little bit on what UVC is. It will kill organisms on the bag by that using that wavelength, that C wavelength. So the challenge is we are a conveyor company. We're good at that. We didn't know UVC, but we partnered with an expert in UVC lamps, and we've been able to bring a product to. It should be going in next month into Stansted. So it will allow the bag to go through on an outbound system. And to your point, Greg, it would be in the SEBRA room potentially, or it could be after the SEBRA room. Those details have to be hammered out, but it effectively would hit the bag with the UV lamps on 360 degrees. So from all 6 sides, it would use the UVC to kill the organisms. It could be anything, but obviously we're talking about COVID right now. So that's one solution going outbound. The inbound is also another challenge in that you've been on a flight for 15 hours coming in from Hong Kong as an example, and you've been away from your bag and you're worried about who's touched that. So coming into the country, we'd have a similar solution that again would use UVC on all 6 sides to go to the claim device. So again, it gives confidence to the flying public that we have a solution that will help sanitize the bags. You can also do them standalone in the lobby to help with tubs for the manual tub x-rays or for any rollaboard. So there's 3 or 4 applications there with UVC that we're investigating.
Okay, let's talk about operations a little bit, what it means. We touched on it a little bit with you, Brian. I wanted to talk about it in terms of passenger processing and flowing management, what you've done for distancing, wayfinding, passenger assistance, safe boarding processes. And when you think of checkpoints, are there any things that you've put innovations to that you've done in the terminal or even in the bag systems that you can discuss and let us know what it's doing to meet new expectations?
Sure, and that's really a balancing act, as we all know, based on public opinion and what's happening. So we've taken really that middle of the road, which is listening to the WHO and the CDC recommendations, pulling that into rapidly understandable graphics. So we're leveraging all of our FIDs and display monitors throughout the entry points all the way to the gate departure area. Naturally, the checkpoint is included in that. And then also, because not everyone is focused on the visual elements, hopefully we're picking up the audible elements by using the speaker system. We've taken somewhat of a different tactic, which is this is very much about doing your part as a community. So we're actually partnering with our tenant carriers, where our individuals that typically do gate announcements or overhead announcements, they have some great voices. And so we're leveraging that community aspect and really making it about us, as opposed to an industry requirement or standard, and bringing that sense of place, frankly, and letting everyone know that we're in this together. As far as the markings on the ground, it was really kind of an initial, what direction do we go with this, and where do you actually end that? Do you actually put dots on the ground throughout the entire journey? That's quite a few dots. And recognizing that there are different surfaces, and we have to make sure that whenever we do that, we're not jeopardizing safety by creating trip and fall hazards. So Mark's team, perfect example from the southwest side of the house, they sent us samples. We trialed it. We made sure that from a carpet perspective that it would work exceptionally well and that it wouldn't wear quickly. And we allowed our partner carriers to actually use that kind of dot approach in their queues at the ticket counter. But we opted not to do it any further from that perspective. And that was simply because we were reflecting back on, we have to recognize it's people doing their part. If we were to put dots and we already had confusion created on, well, there's a group of people because they're a family unit and they're standing, but they exceed that one dot, where do I stand? So yeah, there has to be this balancing act that says putting a little bit of reality in it. And then lastly, that technology front, it is using our, we use Wi-Fi and BLE sensing. So we absolutely create heat maps where we can see some concerns about where there is perhaps social distancing at a risk. And naturally, we have the capability of deploying staff to that area or using our CCTV system to hone in to see what exactly is going on in that circumstance and if we need to intervene.
You know, those are great ideas and great things, steps that you're taking. I talked to you about it a little bit yesterday, and you touched on it early on in the discussion. Having experiences and best practices is something that's going to be really important to other airlines and airports and solution providers. And I guess there's no time for it at the immediate in the immediate future, but having some kind of a feedback of what your experiences are with those would be really helpful when we go forward. And I'd love to have further discussions about how this could be sent out to others. You know, just say, hey, here's some things that we found that work. In terms of airlines and operations, Mark, I know you touched a little bit on what Southwest has been doing. And when you think of the boarding process and just the going through the checkpoints and as far as baggage systems, are there different focuses that you have now that COVID-19 is that's made that a big difference in what you're inputting there into your systems? Yeah,
yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we've done at the gate to encourage social distancing. Obviously, I mentioned the change in boarding process of groups of 10 rather than 30 at a time. If you notice, obviously, our gate agents are a little bit more proactive to seeing how full the bridge is itself. Making sure we're limiting people that are inside the unit. And then on the plane, we have, you know, proactive announcements telling, you know, the seats are capped. There's room for people to spread out. And then our flight attendants are also being proactive. If there's a reasonable to think that somebody's not traveling together and they're sitting next to each other, you know, we politely ask the question and just remind them that, you know, there's spread out and let's leave the middle seat open. So those are some of the things that we've done for directly to our operation. On the outside, with regards to customer flow, I think in the terminal, I think we would all agree that, you know, most of our airports were not designed to handle the BHS requirement that came upon us all back in after September 11th. And now we're faced with another challenge is, they're not necessarily meant to handle the social distancing, especially at security checkpoints. So I think it's for us, we're running models internally to see, what schedules could potentially break a potential layout, and working with our airport partners to sharing that information and collaborating together on solutions. Another thing with the operations I want to touch on some of the UVC is I think that is an important conversation point is if this technology progresses to come into play, and from Southwest, we're not at a point to say that we agree that this is the right path, primarily because of the numerous customer surveys that we've seen. For our customers, that's not a focus right now. It may be one day, and it's imperative that we're prepared, but how does it, what do we do as an operation, as an airline, if somebody elects that they don't want their bag to go through this technology, or even with some other technologies that we're trying to capitalize on with the temperature screening? What if a customer opts out? What does that dynamic look to the operation? What policy changes or what new policies have to be created to address those customers? Now, we may all have the information that says it's not harmful, it's not going to damage any components, but I think we would all agree that most people have their own opinion, and they have the right to their own opinion, and that's their products. And so that conversation, I think, needs to be brought into it. But really and how it affects the operation as a whole, and performance, because airlines are performance based, not only internal metrics that we have to meet, but also DOT metrics that are we have to report to.
Well, and that brings up a good point. And we're talking about technology and UVC exposure. I think for effectiveness, everyone has to agree that what's the right dosage and distance and time. And I know Mike and Sally, you both have some solutions. What has Siemens done in terms of having a UVC application for baggage as well as for checkpoint? Is there a right amount of exposure that you've looked into, and what you think in terms of how this can be applied?
Well, thanks, Pete. Yeah, we took a really hard look at it, and right now there's a lot of comparison being done to other COVID variants that we've had in the past, and the science about how much it takes to deactivate or kill those. I think our design approach is we want to make sure that the solution we develop is future proof, so that whatever the bug of tomorrow is, that we've got enough power, enough dose, as they say, that we can deal with that too. So yeah, there's relatively conservative numbers about the millijoules per square centimeter that are required, but we're kind of packaging for a lot more dose than that. We want to make sure that there's a wide range of sterilization that we can do with the bags that are pass-throughs when 2020 is over, and what we're looking for is something else in 2022 or 2028. We want it to be a solid solution for that as well.
In terms of facility requirements, this really goes around to the whole group, but I want to talk a little bit about what we have to do to put solutions in. I mean, we got to look at power, we got to look at capacity, we got to look at spacing, queuing, shielding, anything in safety measures and solutions. And I would like to say, I'm going to pass it off to Greg. See, what are your thoughts about in terms of design? What do you think airlines and airports are going to need in terms of facility requirements to accommodate, whether it be UV or other things that may allow for spacing and queuing and shielding?
Right. I guess certainly the question I guess implies check bags. I'll stay on the check bags side for now, but yeah, Pete, I mean, most of the solutions out there we've investigated and discussed with industry supplier partners and whatnot. As far as power requirements are fairly minimal compared to what the powers usually we already have available for the bag system. And I think from a there's a couple of platforms you have a couple of flavors. It could be fixed, could be mobile. There's even discussion of handheld. I think it'd be a dry solution was probably going to be the way to go. UV, IUV. I have seen other things that I haven't seen wet solutions. I don't know if that comes with a set of Ginsu knives or what. I don't know how that's vetted out, but the check bag system, I've got to believe UV. Again, you could get fixed, mobile, maybe handheld device type But you have so many unique applications in the whole check bag process. From a control standpoint, to integrate something it's relatively simple compared to what we have in a lot of bag systems already. So we probably it'd be pretty easy to implement from a control standpoint. Usually, it's pretty, whether it's a photo eye trigger or any other IO. I'm not really concerned about that. I don't think most of the guys that we work with are concerned about that being a challenge for them. It would be which type of device, if it's UV, which type, into what specific application within a, and of course I'm thinking of larger systems, but smaller ones would be a little bit different consideration, maybe a little simpler. The large ones, a little bit more to consider because you got more unique subsystems within the overall system. But nothing that's, I mean, from the technical side, as far as that goes, I don't think any of the discussions we've had with anybody, it's very doable. But again, it goes back to, what's cost, how quickly can we do it? Can we start generating a return on that and some tangible empirical results? To actually show, hey, this is safer. We created a safer environment for, staff and potential for passengers on the arrival side. So those are the kind of things. I mean, so we're not really seeing anything. I haven't seen any solutions out there today that raise a real flag on, being a big power hog. Most of the stuff is pretty small stuff compared to what we already have in most bag systems.
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit earlier. We were talking about wayfinding and things that are affecting the operations, and giving some kind of assurance back to the passengers that that something is being done for them and creating an assurance. I know that you, Mike, had a solution for something that you've done. Bear with me a second. That you've come up with in terms of letting the passengers know what's being done. I'm going to share with it right now. You can talk a little bit about it as it comes up, but it's in your bag claim hall. Believe it should be sharing here pretty quick.
Yep.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right.
The point is, thanks, Pete. The point is, how do we pass that message along? Because beyond making sure that we've deactivated that whatever touches have transferred to those bags in the handling process, we want to have passengers be aware of that and to have the industry take advantage of that investment and really actively message so that it's widely understood and the traveling public understands that. So in this case, the idea was to sort of play off ultraviolet and a violet indicator that would come on for baggage claims that are equipped with that technology, just so it's well understood and make that message. It put it out there, and again, the communication, the message is really important, and in getting the confidence of the traveling public back.
I got you. In terms of systems, we're going to transcend this conversation over to BHS and check baggage a little bit and to checkpoints. I know that integrating these into systems has always been a cause for concern. I wanted to make sure that I got with the technical experts here to see what they think, what solutions are being considered besides UV. I mean, and also, where do you put them? So I guess what I would ask, Greg, can you give me a little bit of thought about what, from a design perspective, where you think these systems should be employed within the airport environment when in regards to baggage and check baggage?
Well, yeah, as far as check baggage, yeah, I mean, kind of what we touched on before. The ticket, if everybody starts talking at ticket counter level, because that's usually the first point, or curbside, whatever passenger exchange to say an agent. But I mean, that's become so touchless anyway. A lot of airports, with that we were kind of initially in discussions with any partners that we tended to immediately move to the kind of train of thought we do on some other devices where we minimize the sheer number of them, like bags. Or if we most airports bag systems, get down to say two, maybe 3 lines as we get in, say, an inline screening system. So you got a chance to maybe hit everything there in 2 places or 3 versus all over every ticket counter in a big system. That could be a lot, right? And there's other chances to But the other people have to handle the bag, because we get into those discussions. One thing would lead to another, and that discussion will say, okay, I got a bag jam and I've got facilities maintenance having to clear it. Well, they're going to have to touch bags, right? So has that bag already gone through the cleaning or the kind of the scanning process, if you will, for UV? I don't know. Depends on where it happens. Depends on, that. So it leads that to the bags that are not level 1, level 2 cleared at an inline screening system go into SEBRA. To our TSOs equipped with a handheld top of UV device, or that adds time in SEBRA. If they have to do something like that, we want to probably catch them before they got into SEBRA. And then on the outbound side, do we hit them again as clear bags hits normally hit like main lines and go out to some level of sortation? Do we, and usually that's only say 1 or 2 main lines as well, even on the big system. So we had a chance there to kind of hit every bag again, minimize the number of equipment that have to be deployed, and try to hit multiple places like that. Arrival side, you almost goes without saying. I mean, we tended to, everybody I've talked to, you almost have to hit them on each feed. Now some places, I pick on Miami, for example, has a flat plate claim device that bags circulate. That gets a little tricky. Where do you hit them before you put them on there, so to speak? Because bags could recirculate. It's not no single point of induction like some that are fed remotely. So still a lot of questions and challenges. And I'm not sure, mentioning earlier about fixed position application versus maybe a mobile or something else. Maybe it's a combination. A lot of times in automated bag system, it's a lot of unique products, solutions that go into specific applications that make up the overall system. So maybe it's not one size fits all. Maybe we tackle with fixed position type scanning in some places. In some places, maybe it's a mobile, or if there's a handheld device solution that's applicable, it's something like that. I think you have to kind of be still open a little bit. But I think just for this to pay dividends, we have to really expedite this pursuit of solutions. Because obviously, I think we all agree it's paramount that we get the, that confidence level. And I think, like Michael was talking about, you have that sign up there, and I hate to say this, but whether you miss the bag or not, you're telling everybody you scan it. So there's a sense of confidence that goes with seeing that sign, whether I hit it or not, right? So I think we're trying to generate the certainly, or trying to do our part for safety, but certainly, get that message out there to the traveling public that it's safe to fly again. And that's just one step, I think, in doing that.
Very good. Hey, I got Sally back. Sally, I think you can hear me on the phone. I wanted to give you a little bit of time about talking about how Smith's approaching and providing solutions, and what kind of measures have you had with your systems, and where are you doing it?
Yeah, so we're looking at technologies that are going to help, both airlines and airports and the regulators, in this case, TSA, recover. And at the same time, how do you preserve those security levels while accommodating the new, the potential new health and hygiene measures? So, what can be deployed to maintain social distancing at the checkpoint and continue to apply, all of those safety and security measures while being able to avoid the congestion and reduce those touch points. So we've, I've kind of broken this down into 4 touch points, and, we've been talking about UVC, focusing on the checkpoint. We are also working with a very reputable UVC provider that works in this space in the medical industry. We came up with a design on April 24th. We had a prototype by May, and we had it installed at both London Heathrow and London Gatwick around the 13th of May. So, it's well known that the trays and the checkpoints are a source of infection and transmission. So we're doing those trials now. We're working with some independent testing labs, Alliance Technical Laboratories, based out of the UK, to measure and test the efficacy of that 360 UVC application on the bins. And it's a module that can be put right into whether it's a Smith's I-lane, the automated screening lane, or other vendors. to see how effective that's going to be. And I think we're still a ways away from getting the green light, I guess you could say, for that to be perceived and accepted as a solution. But we think it has some very promising results at this point.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm showing your images right now of the checkpoint where the trays are, and it talks a little bit about the disinfection of the trays, and also showing some close-ups of the your unit or the system that you're using that disinfects through the rollers as it goes through the lineup on in the checkpoint. Is there anything that you want to add to what that is? I'm just going through your slides here while you're talking through.
I mean, it has. We don't need to get into the science behind it, but each tray is disinfected at a 360-degree view. It's integrated into the belt speed of the automated screening lane, so there's no delay. These would get cleaned after each passenger use. The next easy kind of solution that we're already deploying is the sneeze guard. So you've got the physical barriers that can be put up along the checkpoint, from the ASL to whether it's the X-ray or the CT machine. The deployment of the computed tomography X-ray machines at the checkpoint. So as part of the ATCT program, TSA is rolling out currently right now 300 CT machines at the checkpoint at over 100 airports. So this allows passengers to leave their laptops and liquids in their bag. So you'll have typically what we're seeing is the individual trays, personal property that passengers are using. You're going from roughly 2.2 to 1.5 trays per passenger. So you're going to get less false alarms. You're going to get less touch points. It protects the staff. It protects the passengers, and it'll continue to improve throughput and security measures.
Yeah, I understand Smiths is going to be deploying number of units, CT units at the checkpoints. How's that going to mitigate the contamination using CT? Is that in addition to what you were talking?
Contamination? Well, I mean,
yes.
The false alarm rates with computed tomography with CT are lower than your multi-view X-ray systems that are currently deployed. So there will be less inspection of the bag. You'll have the staff, the TSA staff will not have to open and resolve as many bags as they typically do today. That was a requirement, and one of the benefits of deploying CT, regardless of the current COVID situation we're in now. It improves throughput and efficiency, and by allowing passengers to leave their laptops and liquids in their bags, it's going to reduce the number of touch points that the screeners have to engage in.
Very good. Say, Mike, I understand you have Siemens has a solution too. I was going to show a graphic of that. You can probably talk a little bit about that. I'm going to put it up here in a minute.
Yeah. Thanks, Pete. We had an RFI from TSA a few years ago, and at the time, we came up with a design approach that was really focused on a kiosk-based proposal for both the entry and the exit for the checkpoint. So in divestment, where the passengers are sort of taking themselves apart and taking off their shoes and the rest and putting those things into trays, that would happen in a kiosk. And the interesting thing from a systems engineering aspect that we saw about that, this is a picture of the UV system. So I was speaking about checkpoint, but our UV approach is really very common. What it is, and our engineers and the team that are working on it, they describe it as a tanning bed with a conveyor going through the middle. It's not that simple, to be sure, especially on the optical side, as we're doing the work to make sure that the the exposure is right on all 6 sides. And so optically, to ensure that there's some significant engineering involved, and we also want to make sure that we've got accessibility and serviceability that our customers expect from our products that are designed into that thing. So in the packaging of this, what this replaces is 3 sections of queuing conveyor, so that roughly 3 meters long, we would replace a conveyor or 3 individual queuing conveyors for that section, whether it's going into the CTX or in a section between the unloading and the claim carousel, so that all the bags that pass through are being dosed on all 6 sides, which is, again, a common industry approach, very, very much like Robson. If we look at their approach, it's a straightforward, common approach.
Yeah, I was going to have Matt come on here and talk to his. I'm going to share his solution here too. Matt, you're talking about touchless key. This actually is a touchless check-in and also some kind of a scanning unit that you come up with Robson's development, right?
Yeah, very, very similar to Siemens. Frankly, I'm glad to see we have some similar ideas.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, the one thing that Mike talked about is that 6 sides, and as you can see in the middle, there's a little gray, light gray. I guess it would be kind of right in the middle of the graphic. That actually shines, the beam shines up through the space in the 2 queue conveyors. So that's how you get to that 6-sided necessity to hit that 360. So I'm glad to see the like minds on that. To your point, Pete, on the touchless, going back a year or so, there was a big start in the industry for this curb to gate process, where a customer would come in, go to the kiosk, get their bag tag, and then they'd put it on an automated bag drop. It would go through the system, and then they would go through checkpoint, and then go to an e-gate with, facial recognition. So that started the process of trying to get to a touchless journey, and this is part of it. That the unit on the right that has a scale is actually rechargeable, so you can roll that out anywhere in the terminal, and you can scan your app from your airline and obviously not touch it, and it'll print a bag tag. You can weigh it. Most airlines have business rules, of course, on weight. If it goes over weight, you can either pay extra at the unit or go to an agent. But for the majority of people that are under the weight limit, you can get that bag tag very quickly and space those out through the terminal. So the challenge today, 3 or 4 months ago, you saw kiosks being clustered, and that's how we did our business. But today that causes challenges. Even if you have a touchless kiosk, you may have a queue there of people trying to get to the kiosk. So this unit you can put in convention centers. You could expand the boundary of your airport. You can put in the hotels near the airport. You can put in the rental car. You could put them on your each level of the parking garages near the elevators. So that allows us to reduce the dwell time inside the terminal, get people to print their bag tag, put it on, go right to either the agent that takes it, and yes, that's a touch point, or you could automate it more medium and long term with an automated bag drop, and then go through checkpoint. And Smith just talked about their very automated process that's reducing touches moving forward, and then you could go to the gate where you would have potentially facial recognition to board you. So the technology is there. It's going to be a good process when this is all put together. So I'm encouraged for the industry. I know we're going through some tough times, but I know we can get there. So I'm happy to see all the minds coming together and coming up with technology and solutions.
I know there's been a lot of discussion about whether UV is really the answer. I know there's a lot of solutions that looks like they're readily available or being tested out. Sally, I know you got on a little bit late again, but I wanted to see what your thoughts are about what is the amount of exposure that you think, can you accommodate it with your device in a checkpoint environment in a timely fashion to make it efficient for folks to flow through there?
Yeah, I mean, we think we can accommodate it at the checkpoint. I think where it gets more complicated is in the hold baggage scenario, where you've got some of the systems running at 0.5 meters per second, where you would definitely need to have more time, or you might have to design in a diversion for those bags to be contained enough to reach the disinfection levels. I mean, right now we're getting preliminary results from our trials in the UK. It sounds like for those of us who have deployed some of this stuff, they seem to be leaning, the most forward with respect to deploying this in a real world scenario. So still early, but the way that we have the module designed into at least the I lane, the Smith's I lane, we're able to get the 99.9% disinfection rates with the samples and the testing protocol that the health officials and our regulatory partners are using.
Okay, very good. We're getting up on time here. I want to give a little bit of time to Q&A. I'm going to try to get the chat line up here. Let's see here. I'm going to pick chat here, show Q&A. All right, we do have some questions that came in. Actually, one was about, is there really a sufficient amount of time for UV lamp to actually kill things on the bag? The bag belts are moving relatively fast. I think we just talked about that a little bit. I guess there's a lot of different discussion about how long is exposure have to be, and I think we could talk about it more, but I think we've already kind of touched on that one. Same thing was, I have another question about what is the duration of the exposure? Will it affect the speed of the BHS, particularly on the outbound? Maybe from the outbound perspective, I mean, we talked about checkpoints. Is there any time considerations about exposure as far as being effective in making the bags process at the time that they need to? I guess I could give that to you, Mike. See, you have any thoughts of, is there any bad anything that's going to slow it down as far as processing outbound bags?
No, the whole point is to package this into a conveyor, and half a meter a second, as Sally was saying, we're designing around that with really a dose well beyond what's necessary for COVID-19. So it absolutely can be done. It's a straightforward engineering problem that we've taken on. So yeah, similar to Matt and the Robson system, what we're doing in terms of in motion application of UV is straightforward, and we can do the dose without stopping back.
Okay, Brian, I know you have some thoughts on this. I wanted to make sure that we got your points in here. You've talked to some of your hospital colleagues. What have you found with them?
Sure, and that's predominantly, Pete, been around our use in restrooms, and from the time and distance perspective that's been brought up, definitely with UVC. If we were to try to hit a square footage of 250 to 500, we'd be looking at about a 20 to 30 minutes cure time or kill time. Obviously, the implications there is if we were to use those in public restrooms, we're going to have to isolate those from anyone going in. So now we are talking about a controls measure to make sure that we're alerting people and that our consumer understands exactly what we're doing, and frankly, that they appreciate that that's a need. So very much, one of the comments to some degree that Mark brought up earlier is we really have to be cognizant of theater versus reality. This is really part two of 9/11 on a global scale, on making sure that we don't fall victim to profiteering and that we're doing things in a realistic, methodical way. Definitely to Mike's point, it's engineering. Let's leverage that and use partners outside industry to make sure that this is all validated science.
Well, we totally agree with that. I think everyone on this panel who even has solutions is their bigger form of business is to give you systems that process baggage and passengers, and we sure wouldn't want to be doing COVID and UV as our main line of business. But we really appreciate your point and the counterpoint of what it is from profiteering perspective. We're looking for solutions that can be implemented once they are proven and that they can process correctly. So I guess our whole idea is to have something that's readily available and that we can all learn from and employ.
And we did have externally too. What we need to recognize is that there are other industries that are actively looking at aviation for a quick comeback, and what can they in turn leverage. So tremendous opportunity, I think, that Matt and certainly Greg have touched on is as we accelerate these developments, how can we in turn help other industries recover quickly?
Yeah. We had one other question that came in. Maybe Sally or someone, you can take this. Does anyone on the panel think government agencies could require bags to be screened from countries and regions of high risk for COVID? I would assume that the government agencies are looking at how they could require this, but there really isn't anyone that's taken the reins as far as putting any kind of regulations on it. Is there anything that you know, Sally, that the DHS or anyone else or the TSA is trying to impose, or any other government agencies?
I have not heard of anything from a COVID perspective other than, the passengers itself. Anything outside of passenger screening as far as bags, haven't seen too much, collective unison on how to address that.
Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts on that? Mark, have you heard anything from your perspective in the airlines with the government regulations on this?
No, not through my channels. No, that hasn't been a conversation or a point or area of focus for them right now.
Those are all the questions I had. Was there any parting thoughts? We're right up against the hour here now. Any thoughts that anyone wanted to, from the panel perspective?
Yeah, I would, Pete, if I can maybe kick it off. I think one thing for the industry, and I don't want to speak for Brian, but obviously give him an opportunity for his own opinion, but being the end user and potential investment mechanism for this technology, whether we pay for it indirectly or directly, it's critical that the data is vetted out. We kind of crawl before we walk kind of scenario to make sure that the science is accurate, the testing is proved effective, because budget restraints are not only this year, but they potentially are going to be forwarded into 2021. So this just exuberant amount of financial support may or may not be available depending on what the budgets look like. So I think it's imperative, as it's good to see the industry come together. I mentioned that it's happy to see the testing. From an airline perspective, I'd like to see a little bit more information on the actual tests themselves. A couple of the reports that I've read thus far mentions reducing and not necessarily eliminating. So in understanding really about what the test is, how many samples, what that testing, and all the data that I've read thus far has been very high level. And I think it's imperative for us, not only as the airline, and I would assume the airports as well, is to make sure that we are getting our bang for our buck in our investment.
Okay.
You're correct.
Anyone else have any parting thoughts? I know a lot of time has been put into solutions, a lot of questions about what's effective, how time efficient it is, and how effective it is for mitigating it. There's a lot of things that people can talk about in terms of value, in terms of efficiencies, but I mean, there's this whole intent of this panel discussion is showing that things are being done out there, especially from a baggage and a checkpoint perspective. And we just want to be ready when the industry is ready to put something in. And that's why we're going down these paths that we are, to listen to the stakeholders and find solutions that would work from a design and from a manufacturing and an implementation standpoint. That's about all the time we have. We appreciate everyone joining us today. I wanted to thank the panel and for your time and for your input. We may have more discussions about this coming up soon, but I think this has been a good discussion of what's happening out there, what people are trying to do, and what they have to do to future-proof against things that allow for aviation to be profitable again and passengers to return to airplanes and airports. I want to thank everyone, and hope everyone stays safe, and hope to do this again very soon.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks,
Pete.
Great dialogue.
I appreciate it. Thank you.